everyone, welcome to my corner of the world. Today I have a card which has got several techniques that I'm going to share with you today. And the first technique is this watercolor effect. And then I'm going to show you how to do partial embossing of your card. So this is one piece of card, but it's embossed at the top and the bottom, and then it's just flat on the middle part. And I'm going to show you how to use a punch to create a smaller label than the actual punch size. So let's make a start. Now I'm using this shimmery white cardstock. Now I keep forgetting it's in my stash, but it's a lovely cardstock. If you can just see, it actually has got little flecks of, well, glitter or something. I'm not quite sure what to call it in there. This card, it's slightly thicker than our regular cardstock, but slightly thinner than the thick cardstock, and it really is good for this particular technique. So we're going to need something to work on so we don't get messy. And then I've got this piece of card here. And we're going to use 3 different colours of ink. So you need a sort of a light, a medium and a dark. So I've chosen Old Olive for my dark, Calypso Coral for my medium, and then So Saffron for my light coloured. And you'll also need a block, she says. So this is the one of the acrylic stamping blocks, and this is the eye block, and I'm using it because it gives me the a nice band, and it gives me the width of my piece of card. But you can use any block to give the final effect that you want. So we're going to start by using the lightest colour first, and I'm just going to plonk my block into the ink, like, oh, well, that's not very good. Anyway, let's redo it. Okay. And then I'm going to go with my middle colour, which is my Calypso Coral. And I've got a sponge dauber here. And so I'm just going to add some colour. And I'm just going to sort of literally daub it around on my block. And I'm just wiping it off a tiny bit here because I just don't want to get too much ink, So Saffron ink in my other pad. Now you can't see very well that the colour's there, but when we do the next step, it'll all come flooding in. And then my final colour is, as I said, the Old Olive, and I'm just going to just gently, because this is quite a strong colour, I'm just going to gently tap tiny little bit in. Excuse me. Now the reason I'm only concentrating on the middle is that because my cardstock is only really going to be that wide, I don't need to put any extra ink anywhere else. So I think I've got enough on there at the moment. Then we're going to get a spritzer, water spritzer. This just literally has water on it. And I'm going to spritz water from about 12 inches. So I'm going to make sure that I can see the little outlet. And I'm going to try and do it so I don't get in the camera. So I'm just going to spritz, and I'm looking for that ink to start diving into the water. And you can start also, I know that the light's reflecting, but you can also see that the Calypso Coral has started to come through. Now I think I think I've probably done about 4 or 5 spritzes there. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that and see what we get. So I'm going to turn this over, bring in my piece of cardstock, and I'm literally just going to flip this onto the card and just watch to see what happens with all that water and those colours. It's quite, I think it's magical. So I'm just going to line it up as best I can and sploosh it down. Can you see how all those colours, let me try and bring it out, there we go. Can you see how all the colours kind of splooshed into the water and onto my card? And I'm just going to leave that there for a few moments, just for it to suck in, for it to absorb. And this is I was inspired for this card by Alison Akamitsu. If I've messed up her name, I apologise for that. And like all us paper crafters, I put my own little thing on it, my own little spin on these things. Okay, so now that's soaked in, I'm just going to gently lift my block. Ooh, lovely. And you can see that I've got kind of a little bit of an accumulation there. So all I am going to do is to just use my paper and literally blot that excess ink like that. Very gently, so that it doesn't kind of smoosh out onto the card that I want to keep white. So there we are. So when you compare these two, I could have done with a little bit of green there, but I'm not going to get bent out of shape over it. And so you can see that this one was quite subtle with the Calypso Coral, and this one has got a little bit more. But every one you make is going to be totally different. Because of just the way that you put the ink on and the way that the water splooshes it around. So that will take a few moments to dry. In fact, it's practically dry now, but I just want to give it a few more moments to dry so that the black ink I'm going to put on it doesn't bleed into that. So while we do that, I'm going to just clean off this block out the way so I don't get any messier than I do, because it get a little bit gooey. I've got some ink on me. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I did my label. Now I've chosen to use the Garden Wishes stamp set. I just love these plants. They're beautiful. And I love the fact that there's also greetings in there, and I like the font that they're in. It's just a nice stamp set to use. And I'm going to do this Made with Love for a True Friend stamp here. Now I've got a piece of the shimmery white cardstock, and I'm using the Memento Black ink. So this is just about an inch, maybe slightly less than an inch wide. But if you go below this video, you'll see a link to the post on my blog on this card, and there will be all the dimensions that you'll need to recreate, as well as a link to my online store where you can go and buy the goodies. So I'm using this stamp set, this punch rather. This is the Everyday label punch, and you can see it's quite wide, but I'm going to just show you how I can make a thinner version of this label. So I'm going to be lining up the edges with my paper with these 4 corners here, and mainly making sure I center my greeting, and as much as possible I center on those 4 corners, as I said, and then just punch. And there we are. So I've made one label work for 2 purposes. 1 punch for 2 purposes. So I'm going to set that aside for a few moments so that I don't lose it. Now this is practically dry. I just waft it around for a few more moments just so that I can make sure that it is thoroughly dry. And I'm going to work on a piece of paper here. There. Now, if you need it to dry in a hurry, then you can always use your heat tool on there. Now, I'm going to use a sticky note. So I had one in my pad in my stash that's wide enough to fit my piece of card. I think these came from one of the dollar stores. I certainly wouldn't have paid an awful lot of money for them. And I'm going to use what looks like the dandelion head stamp after the dandelion has gone sort of to seed and you're left with just the head. Right, so what I want to do is I want to position it so that I can get the maximum out of my flower on the space I have. So I'm just going to pop it like that. There, lovely. And then the stamp set also has this delightful little bee, and I'm going to use him or her, and I'm just going to have it sort of flying up against the flower. And then the other stamp I want to use in this is this one, and it's like the little seed heads, the filaments of the dandelion. It's kind of sort of flying off in the breeze. So I'm going to put that, and I'm going to attach it to or stamp it to the top, and so it doesn't go over, I'm just going to put my piece of sticky note there again, and I'm going to pop it so the wind is blowing them away in the breeze. There we go. Lovely. Okay. So there's two techniques. I've shown you how to use the punch to make a smaller label, and I've shown you how to do this faux watercolor technique. So the next thing I'm going to share with you is how to emboss the top and the bottom of your piece of card without embossing the middle where you've done all your stamping. And I'm going to be using the Pretty Flowers embossing folder. Now this embossing folder is one of the thinner ones. It's not a 3D, it's one of the thinner ones in the catalogue. And we're going to use the cut and emboss machine, and for this I am going to be needing to use the base plate, the one that's marked number 1, and on top of that I'm going to be putting one of my clear plates, and that's marked number 3, and then I'm going to be putting in my little sandwich here. Now, in order to make sure that the embossing comes out the right way, you're going to need to put your decorated part upwards so that you can see the Stampin' Up logo and this line. Now you're going to need to look carefully at your embossing folder to see where the pattern starts, and you can see here that it kind of starts right at this edge. Some of them start on this line, but I'm going to line up the very edge of the embossing folder where my ink starts, and I'm going to put this in hinge first, and then I'm going to get my second clear plate, and I'm going to slide that in, and I'm going to position it so that the very edge, I need to get my fingers out the way, the very edge, and I've managed to unline that. That's clever, isn't it? Trying to make sure it stays on camera for you. I'm going to make sure that the very edge of the plate is lined up with where that embossing folder finishes. Okay, so everything is in line there, and we're just going to push it all through, crank through like that. And then when we take it out, you'll see that we have just got that beautiful embossing just on this part. And I'm going to repeat for the top, that little top portion. Not much there. So you can see I'm lining this edge up with the ink edge. Pull this out, lay it down. All right, she says optimistically, it's moved. And then we're going to put the edge of the plate against the edge of the embossing folder there, and then crank it on through. Oh, I thought I haven't got it lined up square. There we go. I think we'll probably behave now. Oh, there. Pop my machine out the way. And now I've got my lovely design top and bottom. So to finish my card off, I'm going to put this on a layer, and I've just chosen one of my colours from the ink, and I've chosen to use the So Saffron, and I'm just using a little multi-purpose liquid adhesive. Pop it on like that, and then to pick the black out from the ink, I'm using the Baker's Twine Essential Pack, and this has got white, very vanilla, black, Sahara Sand and Crumb Cake. So there's a lovely selection in there. I'm just going to use the black one for this, and I'm just going to wind it a couple of times round. So I'm going to hold it in my thumb there and just a couple of times round, and I want to just tie it off in a simple knot. In the UK it's called a reef knot. In the US here they call it a square knot. Right over left, left over right, I think is the way it goes. And then just trim that off. And I quite like the crissy-crossy bit to actually be on the front. So I'm going to switch that round. I don't know, it just adds an extra layer of texture as far as I'm concerned. And then I think what I might do is just take these ends and just tie them in again, so that that crissy-crossy bit stays in the right place for me. There we go. And then dimensionals, you know me, one in each corner and one in the middle. And I'm just going to put this on a basic white card base, and I'm using the thick card base here. Oh, put it the right way, Cindy. Oh, that's managed to stick itself down before I'm ready. If that happens, just turn it rather than pull it. If you twist it, you'll find that it will come off nice and clean without damaging the cardstock fibers underneath. And then with my handy dandy little label, I'm going to stick this down. Make sure that's the right way up. So I'm just going to scoosh that along a little bit, just so as it makes sure it opens up. And then there, I think that's it. And I'm not going to put anything else on it. I think it's got just enough on there. I will go ahead in a few moments and maybe stamp inside the card. But there we go. So there's that technique. Thank you to Alison for inspiring me. And I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget to give me a little thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video. Bye for now.